Welcome to Parenting Beyond Belief. This is a production of the Atheist Community of Austin, an educational nonprofit dedicated to the separation of government and religion and the promotion of positive atheist culture. Parenting Beyond Belief is a show for folks who are raising free thinkers in a religious world. We discuss parenting, share our experiences, share stories, and take phone calls from parents who have questions, thoughts, or experiences about parenting in a secular way. Our regular show times are on the second and fourth Saturdays of each month at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you're watching on YouTube, please click that subscribe button. Last month we were up to 700, and I forgot to check and see how many subscribers we have now, but it keeps going up, and we appreciate that.
And remember to like the shows, because that
like them, each one.
Kicks them up to Google.
Yeah, it does.
Top of the screen.
Right on. If you're listening to us on Spreaker, please click that little orange subscribe button. And if you like what we do, please consider becoming a Patreon, a patron on Patreon, so that we can keep on doing what we're doing. I have two amazing guests today. The first is Mandisa Thomas, who is only audio. You see her lovely picture there. Hey, Mandisa.
Hello, Claire. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the show today.
Yeah.
Hi, Mandisa.
She is founder and president of Black Nonbelievers and the 2018 Unitarian Universalist Humanist Association Person of the Year Award. Very long sentence.
Thank you.
And
yeah,
I want you to brag on yourself because you just got another award recently, right?
Well, I will be honored as this year's Free Thought Heroine by the Freedom from Religion Foundation. And so I will be receiving that award at their convention in October. So, yes, I was also...
There's applause over here.
Into their... Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That was awesome. Thank you.
So impressive.
I was also just
Congrats.
inducted into their Free Thought of the Day catalog, to their series. And so on my birthday, I guess I will be featured for their Free Thought of the Day.
Oh, that's
for
great.
September 4th.
Wonderful.
That's great.
Yeah, so they also just came out with a salute to Black History Month a couple of days ago, in which they acknowledged some Blacks who have historically and currently who have dissented from religion, and they included me in that article, which I thought was pretty awesome.
It is.
So it's starting off to be a very, very good year. I said I'm very honored, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the year and all of the things that we'll continue to do. And I'm looking forward to today's parenting discussion.
Yeah. Just a quick note to folks who are watching and may not know this. Some folks don't understand why special groups need their own special subgroup. So, say, Black atheists, why the need for that? It's the same as being any sort of atheist, right? No. The community aspect of religion for Black people is a component that I can't identify with. And Mandisa talks about that. You gave an excellent talk about that here in Austin recently. Look it up on YouTube, probably. Is it out there, Mandisa?
I think so. I believe it was recorded, and it should be on the ACA's channel. Okay. I certainly hope it is.
Right on.
Recently I was also I was invited to be a guest on a Christian station out of Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
I was a guest on the Community Connection show on a channel called Praise Indy, which is a Black gospel Christian station. And the discussion and the interview was really good, but you still had some of the questions that some believers tend to have. But when you listen to Black radio, and especially Black Christian radio, you have to understand why there is a need for a group like Black Nonbelievers. Because religion is extremely pervasive within the Black community, in which it can be very, very difficult at times and challenging navigate that. And that is something that I was very honest about on that station. That this idea that there are no Black atheists at all, we don't exist, and somehow, it is so foreign to the community that it can't be it's a concept that can't be understood, is absolutely ridiculous. But it also speaks to the need for why we have to form these groups, these organizations, to combat the stigma, as well as to be able to have the discussion and press forward.
I'm so glad you're so involved in that cause. What was the reason for this African American Christian station have you on?
Well, they wanted to have the sought us out because she felt like this was a conversation that needed to take place especially for her show, which I thought was great. I mean, she prefaced it by saying that, hey, if this conversation might be uncomfortable for some, but it's amazing. It isn't for you. It isn't for you. She did not allow any disrespect, and it was out of genuine curiosity. Curiosity about atheism, and what an organization, what is an organization we do, and so it was genuinely out of wanting more knowledge, and which we can appreciate. So, that was very. I know for this, I'm not sure if any other shows would have invited me on in such a, capacity, especially being objective. But I appreciated that, she was curious enough to look us up and to want to have us on the show and to have people, to have people talk with me and to learn more about us.
It's remarkable. It's great. I'm so thrilled.
Me too.
Yeah.
It shows a real, genuine interest in having an open discussion, and this woman who sounds so impressive is willing to take risks to have that discussion. I think that's fantastic.
Educating, that's the big thing. Thank you so much for doing what you do, Mandisa. I'm just going to say it one more time. Got to say it. Sorry.
Thank you.
We also have with us today, who has already spoken, Janet Heimlich, who is an author. She is also the founder of Child Friendly Faith Project. Her book is Breaking Their Will, and it's a fascinating read. And then there's moi, Clare Wuellner. I'm your other host, and let's see, I'm on the board of the ACA and on the board of Foundation Beyond Belief, and generally a biologist. Also parent. Yes, we're all parents here. Let's see, what am I forgetting here? I know I'm forgetting something. Oh, we're going to have lots going on today. We're also going to have a person call in on the phone, and her name is Julia Rigler, and she is an expert on dog behavior. And the reason we're going to talk about dog behavior as our learning thing this episode is because for the umpty millionth time, some parent allowed their child to run up to my dog to interact with my dog. My dog is an extraordinarily well-behaved dog, but that's not okay. You never know when a dog is good to have that sort of interaction or not. And so if you are a parent of a child who doesn't know much about dog behavior, stay tuned. Julia's going to be here. We're going to show you pictures of what it looks like, and we'll also describe it for you if you're only listening. But this is super important. 77% of dog bites come from a dog who is known. It's just like all the other horrible statistics. The ones you know are the ones that are most likely to bite. And the reason for that is because that high rate is what's been going on is you have been interacting with that dog, and it's been sending you signals that it's uncomfortable. And then eventually it breaks, and the bite is the hardest message it can give. There is always some message, some words that the dog is using, and you need to learn how to understand those words, the behavior of the dog, saying to you, I'm not comfortable, please back off, the same way you would if it was a person. Exactly the same way.
Right. I think even a very well-behaved dog, one that doesn't have any history of any violence, would be triggered if a child was running up to it. I mean, that
straight
just
at them.
goes right at the flight, fight instinct and all that. So that's...
My dog, one of the things I specialized in for my PhD was animal behavior. So I know a fair amount about dog behavior. So my dog, when I have her come to me to put on her leash, she is so, they have personalities just like people. She is so submissive that it is extraordinarily hard for her to come straight to me. She always comes around to the side. That's just who she is. And so I have to bend around and pull her in front of me so that I can put her leash on. That's her talking to me. It's saying, I want to do what you want to do. I want to be with you, but I don't feel like coming straight at you is the right way to do this because it's a little too aggressive for my personality. It's everywhere if you're paying attention. I also wanted to do some favorite things as our little segment. Before we do that, I would like to do one little semi-non sequitur, and that is, as I was looking for my favorite things, I was looking through my kids' books, and Skippy John Jones is a book. Are you familiar with this one, Mandisa?
No, I'm not.
It's a series of books, and they're pretty delightful. They have lots of play with words, but this is a Siamese cat with several siblings, and I need my eyeballs for this because this print is too small. But what happens to this Siamese cat who has siblings and a mama and all this stuff is he goes into his room and he pretends to be something he's not. So he says everyone knows from my big ears to my toes, I'm not a Siamese cat. I'm Skippy John Jones, a Chihuahua to my bones, and that's what I think about that. So he talks about his ears being too big and his head being too big and so he must be a Chihuahua. And only when I looked at it now, I mean, we used to read these when my kids were little. I was like, that's bodily dysphoria. You know, this is a good book for introducing that maybe to your kids about, some people might not feel like what they look like on the outside. And there's Skippy John Jones doing that. So that was my little non sequitur. But, bonus round for everybody here. Anywho, the favorite things. Does anybody want to jump in on that one? And by the way, we need some callers. 512-686-0279. Give us a call. We will take any questions you have about parenting in a secular way. So give us a call, 512-686-0279. Thank you. And any favorite things?
I have kind of a favorite thing story, or maybe it's an unfavorite thing story that has a good ending. When my daughter was really young, I was constantly in search of the magic thing that was going to make our lives so easy because it was the perfect toy or the perfect contraption she would sit in to eat meals and roll around, or the perfect place to go once a week. And, it just seemed like all the other kids were so complacent or happy and content to just focus on one little task or be carried around in their parents' sling. So, happily, quietly, peacefully.
Not your child.
No. First of all, my daughter, and if you remember, if you were watching the last show I was on, you may have noticed that my daughter, who was on the show, now 15, is a good foot above me, and I'm 5'7". She's a very tall child. Well, she was just enormous from birth, and I mean, I couldn't just put her in a sling without, sending my shoulders out of whack. And personality-wise, because she was always wanting to, like, explore, and anything confining, like a car seat, it was just not going to happen. And so, I just still was on the search for the perfect thing that was just going to, like I said, make our lives easy. And I never found that. And so I learned that I think two things that help make things easier. One is no planning, just hanging out together. And, if it's easy to get out of the house, it was very rarely easy for me because, I couldn't, like, always lift her and put her in the seat and, the stuff you carry and everything. So, just hanging out at home was fine. And the other thing was traveling. Remarkably, when we would go places, she turned into the most amazing traveling companion. She still is, but even at the age of 1, I remember we did this road trip up the coast of Maine. We did also little day trips, too. They didn't always have to involve flying or that kind of thing. But not having any planning other than, okay, we need to make it to this, bed and breakfast by tonight, ended up becoming such an enjoyable experience. And I remember specifically when I just felt like, I had some speaking engagements and we weren't, I wasn't sure, about taking her from this event to that event, and I was kind of feeling a little guilty because I just felt, well, wait, is this trip really even enjoyable to her? It turned out pretty well because we were in London and she had a school project that enabled her to go to a particular museum to learn about Elizabeth I. But the best thing that happened that day was we went into a cafe. And she had her iPad, I had my laptop, I had a lot of work I had to do, and we just hung out there. She got her hot chocolate, I got my coffee. It was like doing nothing, but we were both so pleased to just not have to listen to a tour. We didn't have to learn about, how to get from here to there. It was just being there together, doing our own thing to some degree. But I just remember thinking, this is so enjoyable, just not doing anything. Yeah.
Sharing space with someone you love, here's the biologist, releases all of the good things in your brain. You don't have to be doing anything active. Watching TV together is a fine thing, especially if you are watching things that you can talk about later, maybe a little bit, but not necessarily. It's okay to do. I mean, it used to be that, watching TV with your children was considered inactive and not good. Hogwash. If you're spending time with the person, that's a good thing.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of parents, and this is definitely true for me and certainly for young parents, that they put a lot of pressure on themselves to have this perfect experience for their kids. And, we would go once a week to this thing here. It was for children music, and it really was a nightmare, just trying to deal with the crowd and everything. So try not to put pressure on yourself to do what all the other parents are doing or, fit into some program. Just kind of do what works for your family and what makes you all feel good.
Zen. Not everybody can do Zen parenting, and I get that. I mean, sometimes you have to get to work. Mandisa, do you want to chime in here?
Yes. So, I agree 100%. And I know I've said before, I know I've talked about, the way, especially the way we parent takes pressure off of us, and that sometimes parents do put too much pressure on themselves to be this perfect parent to their children. But I would say, for us, in my household, we communicate a lot through music. There's a lot of music and I'm finding that my sons in particular, especially Miles, I talk about him a lot. He's the most spirited one of my kids right now, the youngest. And so sometime last week, he was singing September by Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Oh, yes.
And there was a part of it where he was trying to figure out what the right lyrics were in the chorus. And so I said, interestingly enough, there's a similar song by Earth, Wind & Fire, the body part. And I said, there's a similar song that they have. And so he wanted to hear what it was. And so as we were, as we looked it up on YouTube and just listened to it, the whole, just that, and that just like stuck with him. And so I was also telling him that there was a rendition that the group Take Six did for one of their other albums. And so I played that for him too. And so now it's like one of his favorite things to listen to. He's like, Mom, can you play that song?
Yeah.
He's like,
isn't that great when you hit upon something that's just so inspiring to a kid? It's just fantastic.
It's good stuff. And a couple of footnotes on music. When I was researching and trying to be the perfect mom that we're all talking about, don't bother, just do your best. There were all the things that are essential to development. And so you can have all of the things, but the things that are essential are touch, food, of course, and talking to them in repetitive short sentences is important to their speech development. And the other thing that was essential, not nice, not just like, if you have time, music is essential to normal brain development. That's why it's in every culture. I don't care what culture you talk about. It's there somewhere, and it's linked to language and learning language. So music is essential. Even if you can't sing or the toot, sing to your kid. Find music everywhere you can. Have it on the radio. And to this day, music is, like you were talking about, Mandisa, one of those things that my now 16-year-old child and 13-year-old child and we bond over. Music is and there's a reason for that. There's Katie Malinsky, my friend who does all the parenting coaching, she has a word for it, and I'm trying to remember it, but my brain's not going to let me remember it right now. But it has to do with how you are in alignment with your child. Music can bring you into alignment really easily. And it's interesting, if you watch the Atheist Experience recently, Shelley Siegel talked about that too. How you can get things across to people with music that if you were to just talk to them about it, it would be much harder. Music is an amazing thing. I love that story, Mandisa. I just love that.
And I know we'll be talking about
when they say that, when they say that music is a universal language, it truly is. It can, there you can find many songs, whether for across different genres, that really can speak and resonate to almost any type of situation. And it is in a way that, that certain books, even though we advocate and we encourage people to read, it is an effective form of communication that, like you said, it creates bonding experiences between parents and children. It creates experiences throughout, throughout the world and through different people. And it could be at times considered more effective that way, really, because I think music has a way of speaking to people and not always at them.
Right.
It's very primal. Dale McGowan does a lot of posting about this sort of stuff. He's another Parenting Beyond Belief host on the earlier show in the month. We actually have a caller. If y'all would like to go to the caller, would that be cool? We can get back to what we were just talking about, but I don't like making callers wait if we can help it. This is Joan from Denmark, and her child is, their child is 14. What to do in a Protestant community should her daughter get confirmed? So, Joan, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great.
Yes, I can.
You're on air with...
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. You're on air with Mandisa, Clare, and Jan.
Hi, Joan.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking my call.
Yeah. So, what's your question?
Yeah, I was talking to my, it's an ongoing conversation in the household, of course. We live in Denmark, which is quite a secular society, but it's also very, very, everyone's a Protestant. in Denmark. Even if we're not actually practicing or believing or yada, 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 we're kind of sort of on the paper Protestants. And there's a tradition that when you're about 14, my daughter's 12, but when you're about 14, you get confirmed. Or she'll be 13 soon. The 13, 14, you get confirmed. And obviously, friends, school, everything is, you actually get time off school to attend classes at your local church. Sorry, I know this sounds ridiculous, but you get time off school to do this. To study the Bible with your local vicar, and then everybody gets confirmed, and it's a big party, and everybody does it. I did it as well, even though I grew up atheist. And so here's the honest thing from me. I kind of want to tell my children, all three of them, to like, no, you're not allowed to get confirmed. Mm-hmm. But of course, I'm also a humanist, and I want them to grow up and make their own decisions, and I'm torn. Mm-hmm.
You understand the implications of it, but you also want to honor what they feel like they need. So, Jan, you want to jump in on this? I can tell.
Well, one, I absolutely empathize with you and your desire to keep those religious influences at bay, especially since it seems like no one in at least your kids are, feeling that's not a big inspirational part of their lives. Why go through something just because everyone's doing it?
Exactly, yeah.
But I also, I'm channeling Dale now, who's normally co-hosting with me, Dale McGowan, and also just experiences that I've had and talking to other parents, and that is that I think that the most important thing is to keep the lines of communication open between you and your daughter about this whole thing. Check in with her a lot about it, see how she's feeling about it, because really the best solution is what comes from her. If she's very curious about it, there's absolutely no harm in her going through it, and it may turn out to be a really boring, dumb experience, and you can all laugh about it later. But what I do feel is important that the conversation is always there about how, so that you can understand how she's feeling about it, and she has a chance to really express it, and so that she's going into it very willingly, whatever her choice is. And then again, after her decision is made, whether she ends up doing this ritual or not, you can still talk about it after the fact and see, well, so how do you feel now that you chose to do it or that you didn't do it? How is that for you now? And just, I think the whole thing can be, regardless of how positive or negative the experience of the ritual may or may not be, that it would be a great learning experience and a bonding one for you both.
A teachable moment sort of thing.
Yeah.
In a big way. Mandisa?
Yeah, and yeah.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. So, no. And this is what I'm telling myself as well. I work as a teacher, and I get all the sort of I realised the other day a person came to my house and she was talking to my daughter, and she said, "Oh, so you're getting confirmed soon?" And my daughter literally froze at the question, and that's clearly because she knows how I feel about it, and she was. She
doesn't want to.
Yeah, I should say she's just run upstairs with her iPad to listen in on this. So she's actually, I think she's upstairs listening with her brother. So, she's a bit curious to hear what you guys were saying.
Well, it would be natural for her to not want to displease you. So,
of course,
right?
Because I don't want it to be, I don't want to be like a. But the thing is, if I was a Christian parent, and she was saying, "I don't want to be confirmed," I would be on her like a ton of brick, wouldn't I? Mm-hmm. I would be. It would be a very different situation.
Yeah, but you're not.
No, I know. The alternative is, because I have to bring this up, there is an atheist organization in Denmark, and they have actually invented, or I don't know how to, but they have invented a humanist confirmation where they
I like that.
I know, I love it. Where they sort of organize a couple of weekends where the children go away and they learn about, we do a lot of this going away, humanism camping thing, not me, but sort of in Denmark generally. And so they organize this sort of trip away where the children go away for a weekend and learn about what humanism is, what morality entails, what all of these things. And I think that sounds effing brilliant.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm trying to sort of kind of like sell that.
Yeah.
Well, have you checked it out yourself? Have you learned a lot about it?
Everything I can. They've only, I think, done it twice, so it's quite sort of a new thing. Sort of a new thing. And obviously, they can only do that, as I said, because everyone is Protestant and everyone goes through the same rituals. So it's very easy.
Well, if I could encourage you to include your daughter in this learning process, so it's not like you've kind of made up your mind that this is great and now you have to sell it to her. I think if you can include her in that exploration you're doing and learning about it, if you go there, I don't know how far it is, but if you go there and sit down with someone or talk to a girl, perhaps, or boy who's gone through it, and they can, explain what it was like, or however way you think would be best to learn about that option. I encourage you to do that with your daughter, because that way she's, if she feels like, hey, this could be a good thing, she's owning it as well and feels that she has some control there, as opposed to, again, just wanting to please mom.
Yeah, there's nothing to push back against if you don't have any.
I mean, I think you would feel better in the end, too, if whatever she chose to do is something that, was coming from her.
Mandisa, did you have thoughts?
Yeah, so my thoughts may be just a bit more simplistic than that. And I think this goes back to what we talked about, taking pressure off of ourselves as parents. Really, I think that if you ask your daughter what she wants to do, whether she says she wants to go through this confirmation or not, if she says yes, then you can prepare her for it. And if she just wants to get time off of school, whatever her motivations may be. And for teenagers, they could be purely, self-serving. She may want to get out of school for a little bit. I think that may be totally fine. If she doesn't, then that's fine too. I think that children, especially teenagers, need some room to be able to make those decisions without feeling that pressure, or to even feel like, well, they have to go through this to even learn something. I tend to not like ritualistic things. So
me too.
And maybe that's why I'm just like, well, if she wants to do it, fine. If she doesn't, she doesn't. She'll get that support either way. And I can totally understand, because you went through it, you don't want her to have to go through it, which is a valid, it's a valid point of view. But really, just supporting whatever decision she wants to make, or whatever your children want to make with that. Because really, if it's all just about ceremony and ceremony or whatnot, then I mean, she could just kind of go through it. It could be a fun thing to do with her peers. Let her go through it. But if she doesn't want to, then that's totally fine. And if any parents have any questions of you, then you can say it was her decision and you support it. And there's really nothing that they can do about it. Because that peer pressure among adults that's a real thing too.
Kids aren't the only ones dealing with peer pressure.
There's absolutely no peer pressure from other parents. We are in secular Denmark. There really isn't. It's really not a big deal. People would ask why, and she would go, "I didn't want to," and that would be it. There wouldn't be that kind of peer. And as for going time off school, I don't think I explained that properly. classes are cancelled for everybody in the school. It doesn't matter whether you get confirmed or not.
Wow.
It's actually well, this is how ingrained it is. You just don't.
So she'll get the time off either way.
Yeah. So she could either go and listen. I was talking to her. So this happened today. I was talking to her about, original sin. And she said, so basically that means if you did something illegal, Mum, it would go on my criminal record. That's original sin. So, they get it, So it really is just about the white dress and the presence, maybe, I think. I don't know. She's listening, so I don't want to put anything on her that I don't want to straw man. Right. I have no idea.
So, I think what I feel about this is that I'm confident you're going to do the best thing because you're thinking about it. You realize that your response has to do with your stuff, not hers, not the religion itself. And that's all the more you need to know to make the right decision. I think you got this.
My husband wasn't confirmed. He's from the UK and comes from a different religious tradition. And he even questioned christening the children. But my mother thought it was best they got christened, and I kind of did it for her sake.
It doesn't really hurt anything. I know that philosophically.
I mean, I personally, I'm like Mandis. I don't get into rituals. I strongly am opposed to making children say vows. And
that I don't.
Those are, I've had a fight here or there with that. But most religious rituals, with the exception of male genital cutting, circumcision, with the exception of a few, most of them are not necessarily harmful. I again think that as long as this whole thing is approached openly with eyes wide open and people are free to express how they feel about any of it and all of it, you really can't go too wrong.
Yep. Does that help, Joan?
Yeah, absolutely. It was because obviously my husband just, he and I just sit here and nod at each other and agree.
Excellent.
That humanist version sounds
that sounds
fantastic.
amazing.
Yeah, doesn't it?
I would definitely look into that if I were in your position. Just as having an option, because it sounds like the option for most kids there is you either go through it or you don't. But having something kind of in between, I think, could be really interesting.
And probably better.
Exactly, because you go away having actually learned something which isn't sort of the Bible. A lot of children who... sorry. No, I don't know.
That was funny, the way you said that.
And you're sort of promoting something that you believe that you know to be more along the lines with your worldview. And then, if she were to do it, and then, we're talking about it to others and so forth, you're kind of spreading the word about something that sounds very healthy. And thoughtful, as opposed to going through the motions of something.
Right?
I think sometimes I do speak too negatively about religion, but I'm in a very religious environment every day, so I get a bit fed up, and that obviously rubs on the poor children.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any harm in that. I honestly don't. I mean, your children have every right to learn your thoughts and feelings about anything, as long as it's, it's put out there that, this is how I feel about it. Other people, your father may feel differently. It's okay for kids to learn the opinions of their parents. It's when it's thrust upon them and they're indoctrinated with it and it's exploitive that it's harmful. So I don't think you need to worry about just talking about how you feel about things.
I agree.
Well, thank you so much for taking my call.
Thank you so much for calling, and let us know what she does.
Yeah.
Would you call back and let us know and how what she thought of whatever her choice was? That'd be awesome.
Yes, I did tell her she could have a chat with you, but she didn't think that would. But maybe when she's made her choice, she'll.
Okay, Joan, thanks so much for calling. Great question.
Yeah, thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Okay, that's the one I want to drop. All right, Julia Rigler, our dog expert person, is online now. So I'd like to move to that if that's okay with y'all.
Sounds good.
That'd be fine.
All righty. I'm going to get Julia on here first. Hey, Julia.
Hello.
Hey, can you hear me all right? I guess you can.
Yes, I can. No problem.
All right.
Hi, Julia.
That's Janet.
Heimlich here.
And you know Jan, right? And then Mandisa.
I know Jan, yeah.
Good to hear your voice.
Mandisa Thomas is online too. Do you know Mandisa?
No, I have not met Mandisa.
All right. Well,
unfortunately.
Mandisa, meet Julia. Julia,
Hey,
meet Mandisa.
Very nice
Hello.
to meet you.
Right. So let me tell y'all a little bit about Julia. Julia Rigler is the owner of Julia Rigler Photography in Grapevine, Texas. She has been active in dog rescue since 2012. She's an Artists Helping Animals member of Hearts Speak, a nonprofit that's uniting art and advocacy to increase the visibility of shelter animals. She has been a volunteer photographer at Dallas Animal Services, the third largest shelter in the United States, since 2016, and offers pro bono photo shoots to rescues. Her work has been featured on Hallmark Channel USA and can be purchased on Fine Art America and Images with Heart. Also, she photographed my family for Christmas one year, and it was wonderful.
Julia's pet photography, which I've seen, is stunning.
Yeah, check it out, y'all.
Obviously, you have such a connection with your subjects.
Yeah. So I contacted Julia because as I said earlier in the show, had an experience yet again where a parent allowed their child to charge right up to my dog, which in my case is good, is not bad because my dog is extremely well trained and well behaved. But it's not always going to turn out that way. And I thought, we've got to talk to parents about how their children should interact with a strange dog or even their own dog to avoid problems. So Julia, shall I turn it over to you to start us off about talking? And we do have pictures to show you behaviors and so forth. Julia, do you have us on screen somewhere so you can see the pictures that we're looking at? Do you have us on YouTube?
I do, actually.
Excellent.
Yes. I've got YouTube up, and so I can see whatever you decide to share.
Okay.
And I had pulled some facts because I'm a very data-driven person.
I know that's right.
I'm very creative, but I'm also super data-driven. I have apparently a very balanced brain. But I wanted to have some facts to give for people so they wouldn't think that we were just spouting an opinion here. We actually have facts to back it up. And the more time I've spent around kids and dogs together in the past several years, the more concerned I've been with this kind of thing. So I was actually super happy that you asked me to talk about it today because it is so incredibly important. Working in rescue, I used to take foster dogs to rescue events all the time. And now as a photographer, I photograph rescue events. Or for the last 2 years, I photographed I was the official event photographer for the Dallas shelter on Clear the Shelter Day, something that they do in the United States every year in August, where they have free adoptions and people come and stand in line and they take home all the free animals and the shelters are empty by the end of the day. And it's a wonderful thing. But it's also absolute chaos. And trying to photograph that and bite my tongue can be kind of difficult because there are so many interactions that are occurring with the children and the animals that the parents are not paying any attention to. And it's heart-stopping sometimes to see these things. And then going and looking at the facts. I looked at on the American Veterinary Medical Association site. According to them, over 4.5 million people are bitten by dogs every year in the U.S. 4.5 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's what's reported.
Reported, yes.
Yeah.
About 800,000 of them get medical attention, but 4.5 million are reported. And at least half of those bitten are kids.
Yeah.
Kids are by far the most common victims and far more likely to be severely injured, obviously, because they're smaller.
Right.
And most of the dog bites affecting young children occur during everyday activities and while interacting with familiar dogs. You're far more likely with younger children for them to be bitten in their own home by their own dog.
Yep.
which is actually, you know, what I've experienced in my own family.
Right, and
our
mine.
children have never been bitten, but my cousin's children have been bitten. My brother's children have been bitten by their own family dogs.
Yeah, I've seen it too, that sort of thing. Yep.
Yeah. So
there's less awareness of how to deal with familiar pets than there is about stranger danger kind of situations.
There's less supervision with the familiar pet. There's less supervision, most often because the parents think, oh, we've got a good dog. You know, they're around him all the time. It's fine. And then also because, unfortunately, in my opinion, there's all those videos that are posted on Facebook and on the news, you know, all the cute dogs and animals interacting. The vast majority of those interactions are actually negative, and the dog is either very uncomfortable or scared.
Yes.
But people don't read it that way because they don't understand canine body language.
Yes.
Right, they humanize the animal.
They humanize, the anthropomorphize, and they mislabel.
Yeah.
So it perpetuates the cycle of kids doing things that are actually potentially dangerous and bad.
Right. Can we put the first image up there, Mark, and start talking about that? Look at this sweet, happy little family with their dog. Nope. Go ahead. Have at it, Julia.
Okay, so there's a little bit of a lag on the video that I'm watching. So I see both of you nodding in my video, but I don't see the picture yet. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There. It's the one with the two little girls loving on the dog in the Santa hat. Oh, the one that I sent you?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, I still don't see it on the screen.
Okay.
So, yeah, this actually was a commercial. This was a professional photo shoot, and I don't know who the brand is. This was shared on Facebook by a veterinary behaviorist, Dr. Ilana Reisner, and Reisner Veterinary Services is the name of her Facebook page. And she talks about kids and dogs and bites all the time. And so several of the images that I sent you, I had pulled off of her site. So if anybody's interested and wants to learn more about that or see more of these things, then you can follow her page and see a lot of it. Because anytime there's a news bite story, she usually covers it. And she'll talk about, you know, okay, well, here were the danger signs that were ignored. Here are all the problems with this story. Here's how this could have been avoided. So, yeah, so this is a professional photo shoot. This was staged. This was adults telling children to do this to this poor dog. This dog is clearly not happy. He has a furrowed, tight brow. So if you look, it looks like he's frowning. His eyes are very hard. He's got a hard stare. His ears are back instead of being relaxed and hanging down or up. But this breed doesn't do that. They have hanging down ears. And then his mouth is really tight. These are all indications that this dog is unhappy.
And if you put all of those same things onto a person, you would know they were unhappy. But in a dog, we ignore it. If you had a furrowed brow, and if I was like this, you wouldn't think I was happy. But we think the dog's happy because it's kind of in there. It's in there, and not by choice. And those are the signals
he's not showing fangs. It basically fangs. And even sometimes when they do show fangs, people think it's okay.
No, these are all
smiling
them talking to you. Right. Oh my God, yes. It's not smiling. Oh my God. Okay, so let's do the next photo. Here we go. It's the dog. It looks like a kind of a mutt sort of dog, and it's licking its lips, and its eyes are squinty, and its head is down, and its ears are back.
And it's getting petted.
And it's getting petted over the top of the head, which is not very smart.
So one of the things that I taught my kids from the time that they were little was never approach a strange dog and reach out over the top of their head. Don't even do it to your own dog unless your own dog shows that they're okay with it. Most dogs don't like that. They're especially unfamiliar dogs. You don't know if those dogs have ever been hit. You know, you don't know if anyone's hit them. You don't know if they've been slapped at. You don't know what's happened to them. And so that is seen as a sign of aggression to a lot of dogs. It makes them super uncomfortable. And so this dog is expressing that by licking its lips, the squinty eyes, and then the ears pinned back.
So if
this dog is clearly uncomfortable.
Yeah. So if you think about a human, again, doing the same thing, if I'm like this, does it mean I'm loving it? No. It's like, oh, God, back off. Give them some space. And they deserve just as much respect. And if you don't give them respect, that's when you get bitten, and it's not the dog's fault. We go on to the third photo. Here's a happy pooch. It's the lab, or maybe it's I can't tell, it looks maybe a golden retriever, but very light.
It's a golden retriever.
Yeah.
It's a pale-colored golden retriever.
Super
so
soft.
This is what you want to see in an interaction with a dog. This is actually from New Zealand. There is a campaign going on down there to teach children how to approach and pet dogs. It used to be a long time ago when I was growing up, and even maybe 30 years ago, that kids and even strange adults were taught, okay, don't pet over the top of the head. Instead, reach under the chin or pet the chest. And that seems, yes, absolutely, that's less aggressive than reaching over the top, but it's still putting the child, who is much smaller with a much shorter arm reach, in really close proximity to a dog's mouth. You're really, with little kids, you're putting your face right up next to the dog's mouth. And if that dog is uncomfortable and decides they don't like it, the easiest thing for them to do is to snap. So this campaign in New Zealand is teaching kids to pet unfamiliar dogs on the back and stand to the side. It's a much less aggressive posture, and you can tell that this dog feels that way. His ears are relaxed. They're not pinned back. His eyes are soft. They're not hard. His mouth is open and relaxed. He's not panting, because panting can also be a sign of stress. But it's just a soft, relaxed mouth. And then his body is curved. A little slight curve to the body is always something that you want to see when you're approaching a dog, or when your dog is approaching another dog. A curved body is soft language. A straight line is more aggressive or intimidating or alert. So always you want to see the curvy line.
Okay. That to illustrate this perfectly.
This is a positive photo here.
So let's look at the next one, which is a perfect example of what you're talking about, the dog being straight, and the child is coming straight at the dog, again, which is an aggressive act, and the dog is licking its lips. The whole front of its face looks hard. I'm just seeing it from a very small image where I am, but I can see that this dog is uncomfortable. It's got a paw up, and its body is just tense.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. And this picture actually was taken by Dr. Reisner herself. She was at some kind of a festival where she lives, and she took this photo and posted it on her Facebook page and talked about the incident. So there's a lot of stuff going on here, and it's all important, because this kind of thing happens at adoption events, at pet stores, at festivals, any kind of place where there's dogs and kids together. This stuff happens all the time. And most of the time, the adults are not paying attention. If you see the body language of the two adults standing with the dog, they're talking to each other.
They're not paying attention at all.
They're not looking at the dog. They're not paying any attention. And you don't see their heads in this photo, but Dr. Reisner had written up about the incident, and I read her description of the incident, which did verify that, yes, what we're seeing in the body language is actually what happened. The two adults were talking to each other. They were ignoring their dog completely.
Julia, I mentioned...
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, well, I know you're probably going to get to this, but I just wonder if you could tell parents whatever you feel is important to say about how to communicate to children about how they should relate to their own pets and to strange animals.
Yes, yeah. So what I had wanted to do was to talk about the statistics, which we covered, a look at some of the body language cues, and then talk about, okay, well, so here's the problem. So now how do we go about solving it? So that was going to come after we finished. But yes, absolutely. I wanted to talk about that. So the toddler, yes, as you said, Claire, is walking towards the dog's face. And then the caregiver of the toddler is behind the toddler and not facing in the same direction. So the caregiver of the toddler was not paying attention to the toddler approaching the strange dog either. So it was just the two of them in their own little world. And the dog is trying to communicate as best possible, holy cow, I'm really nervous, back away from me. But of course the toddler doesn't know. It's a toddler. So the dog's ears are back. There's a really hard stare from the eye. There's lip licking. One foot is lifted. The whole body is in a straight line and kind of leaning forward. To me, this is a scary photo because I really think that this dog could have easily bitten this kid.
Yeah, because it's trapped.
Dr. Reisner actually said that she normally doesn't make comments in public, but she actually did intervene in this instance because she was uncomfortable.
Wow.
Because the dog,
she did tell. Yeah, she did tell the lady's caregiver, you know, you need to step back. That dog is uncomfortable. You need to move your toddler.
Good.
This kind of thing just makes my blood run cold.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it so easily could have been the day's news story of, you know, this is another terrible thing that happened.
Okay.
So, Claire, did you have more pictures?
Yes, I do. Mark, can you show the next one, please? Okay, this is a picture of my dog, and I have a series of 3 here to show going from perfectly happy to be close to me because she trusts me to the next picture, which is, okay, I've had enough of this. And the difference there is subtle, and it's because she is now avoiding direct gaze into my eyes. She's looking off to the side. And then the next picture, it's even more extreme. There's whites of her eyes showing. Her face is turned away from me. Her ears are back. She's very uncomfortable. And that's a dog that's my dog. It's just too much. I'm just too much in her face. And that's because I'm taking a picture of her. So this illustrates a dog that you would want to be careful approaching, in my view. What do you think, Julia? I mean, she's my dog. I can say this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, I agree. I mean, she's definitely giving the language that I'm uncomfortable. Anytime you can see the whites of the dog's eye, that's called whale eye, and that's a sure sign that this dog is really nervous and uncomfortable. And in body language speak, she's uncomfortable and she's trying to diffuse the situation. So her eyes are big, but she's looking away. And so she's saying, please don't confront me. I'm not a threat to you.
That's called appeasement behavior.
Yes. The look away is very much, I'm not a threat. You know, please go away. If I don't stare at you, you won't stare at me, and we can diffuse this situation.
Right. Right.
Unfortunately, most people don't understand that.
Nope.
And well, I need to do something to get the dog's attention, and they'll get right in its face.
Oh, gosh.
So you have to, there's this thing called a ladder of aggression and trigger stacking. And so there's just one little thing that piles up on top of another, on top of another. And the dog will respond with body language, but if you don't recognize those cues, then it seems to you, quote, it bit out of the blue.
Yeah.
Well, no, it didn't. It bit you after it gave you cue after cue after cue. I'm uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable. Don't bother me. But you ignored all of it because you didn't understand it.
Right.
And your dog is so adorable.
She's a sweetheart.
And, you know, I can see how, you know, most people would maybe make the assumption that if a dog looks so sweet and adorable, that they're just not a threat.
Yeah. And the number of people who look at her when she's like that, she will approach people looking like that and put her paws up for attention looking like that. And people, oh, she's so sweet. And I'm like, you're not interpreting that correctly. She's actually very anxious and hoping that you will be kind to her. And that's all it is. She's just a very submissive dog. And so... yeah, it's interesting when people tell me what they think she's thinking when she's approaching them. Oh, she's so sweet. I think that
I think a lot of the reason that so many small dogs bite.
Oh yeah,
is because
they're small.
They're small and they feel really threatened, and so they don't have any other action that they can take, especially when they get cornered. And one of my nieces was bitten when she was, you know, probably 3 years old by my parents' dog. And we had been telling her all day, quit chasing the dog, quit chasing the dog. But, you know, somebody wasn't paying attention. There was a house full of people. It was the holidays. And she chased the dog actually underneath a chair and cornered it. And the dog bit her.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and honestly, it was completely her fault.
Yes, it was.
She wasn't terribly hurt and she got over it, but, You know, I mean,
hopefully she learned
the dog
from
had
that.
to be put in quarantine for that. You know, I mean,
oh man,
my parents reported it and did what they needed to do. I mean, he was just under house arrest basically. My dad joked about it. You know, we can't go to Sonic for our daily ride because you know Scully's in the pokey.
And the clink. Poor dog.
Maybe the daughter should have been in the pokey.
I think so. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And it's so frustrating, and it happens all the time.
Yep.
And the more I learn about behavior and the more I see, the harder it becomes for me to be out in public. Just with like the general public when I don't have any authority to say, hey, back away from that dog.
Yeah. Oh, I do. I go ahead and say it because I can't stand it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The most important thing for anyone to do is to be their dog's advocate and to speak up for their dog. And when someone comes running at their dog, you know, stop them.
Yeah.
And don't think you're being mean. Don't think you're being rude. You are advocating for your dog. Who cares what that stranger thinks?
Right.
And so I will physically step in front of my dog and put them behind me and say, no, sorry, can't pet my dog.
Yeah.
And people look at me like I am mean, but you know what? One of my dogs really likes people, and one of my dogs really only likes the family. And either way, it's a stressful experience for a stranger to come running up at it and try to pet it. So as a general rule, when someone asks, I say no. And if they come running at me, I definitely body block and say, you can't pet my dog.
I've had the experience many times where parents do seem very aware of these kinds of things. And I'll see, you know, a small child. I just remember when we had a dog and a small child would want to pet the animal, and their parents would talk them through it and just say, well, wait a minute, let's just take a minute here and take a look at the dog. And, you know, we want to just, you'll tell us what the right things are. But, you know, just approaching the whole thing very slowly with reaching out a hand and letting them sniff and that kind of thing. So I have also observed a lot of parents doing this very thoughtfully and teaching their child in the process. So,
that's
you know,
true.
that does happen in a good way.
Yeah. Sometimes parents surprise me. Once I was holding Bluebell in my lap, and a child approached and said, may I pet your dog? And I said, sure. So the child is petting the dog, and I'm looking up to watch my children or whatever, and Bluebell all of a sudden goes, and I was like, whoa. And I said to the child, what did you do? Because there's no way she would have kind of snapped at him otherwise. And to my surprise, the child's mother also said, what did you do? Because she knew the dog was talking to him, and he looked at his feet and said, I pinched her tail. I'm like, well, yeah, she's going to snap at you. Yes.
Wow,
so there are some parents out there who, yeah.
Well, what a good girl for having bite inhibition and just snapping and not actually going for skin, because it was definitely deserved.
Yeah, that's why I think my dog's kind of gold, is she's put up with some things like that. There's more pictures. Shall we do another picture?
Sure.
What's the next one there, Mark?
While you're getting that up, since there's a slight bit of a delay, I'll talk a little bit to what Jan was asking. So the group that I mentioned before in New Zealand, the Kids Safe with Dogs program that they're doing in New Zealand, has just a few takeaways on what you should do if you're approaching a strange dog. The first thing, obviously, which most people don't do, but you should, is to ask the owner.
The owner, yes. But owners can be stupid.
Only pet the dog if it doesn't have to be restrained. If the dog is starting to try to back up and get away, and then the owner's trying to hold it still so you can pet it, don't pet the dog. Don't pet the dog. Just don't. Back up and say, no, that's okay. We don't need to do that. Don't reach out to let the dog sniff your hand, because that's reaching towards the dog's head. So don't do that sniff thing that we were taught to do when we were kids. Don't do that. Don't touch under the chin. Don't touch the chest. Don't touch the top of the head. And don't reach towards their mouth. Because, yes, their nose and their mouth are right there next to each other. Don't reach towards that. That can be perceived as a threat. So you want to touch the dog only on the back or the sides. And if you're trying to approach from the side and pet on the back or the side, if the dog backs away, then you stop.
Yep. You listen to the dog.
And I know that that's such a temptation. The younger the kids are, the harder it is. And that's why the parents have to be responsible and have to take control of the situation and monitor very closely.
Yeah. So if we can go back to that picture, which people must have thought was a mistake or was random, but it's not. So it's to show something that you would understand if I were to ask in this way. Which of these two people would you approach to ask for directions? Obviously, the person on the left is relaxed and open. The person on the right is very tense. I wouldn't want to walk up to that person and ask them anything. Same with dogs. They have the furrowed brow, the tense shoulders, the just closed body, the tight mouth, everything. Everything about him says, I'm anxious. So just pay attention that way, and then we'll go to the next picture, and we're going to do kind of a quiz. I think the quiz is next. Okay, so this dog's owner says, yes, you may pet my dog. Julia, do you think that this dog is safe to pet? Can you see? You probably can't see it. Oh my gosh.
I see Prince Harry right now.
Okay, so Prince Harry, after that's going to be a very fuzzy dog, and it's a golden retriever, and it's just all sorts of open and happy. The tail is up. She's like semi-curved to you. Her eyes are super soft. Her ears are just down. She's like, okay, love on me. That's her whole demeanor. Do you see that dog now?
Right. Not yet.
Not yet.
There she is. Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Very pretty.
You think she's...
Pretty floofy.
Yep.
Curved tail, yeah, the tail is a huge indicator, and it always hurts my heart when I see dogs with cropped tails because that really cuts off their communication ability. It really does.
Yeah. I hate seeing that too. And they cut the ears and mutilate them and all
that. It's all communication devices.
Yep.
So regardless of what they're bred for or anything else, it's limiting their communications. But the tail, if it's up, it can mean a couple of different things. If it's straight up in the air or if it's starting to curve towards their head, then you be wary of that dog. A tail up that far is not a good thing.
They're a little too aroused.
The tail in this position, the tail in this position, like at the 3/4 level, that's a good tail.
Like happy
down and down and relaxed a little, more like, a 30 degree, 45 degree, that's okay. Straight down, not good. Tucked to the belly, leave that poor dog alone. It is terrifying.
Right. Dog it. Why can't people see that? Oh, my goodness. So I don't know how long it's going to take for you to get to the next picture, but I'm going to introduce it, and that is this owner has said, yes, you may pet my dog. And we're going to pretend that the owner is facing you so that that's not a variable. But can you see the dog yet? Yes.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. It looks like maybe a whippet greyhoundy thing. I can't tell from this distance very well, but its body language is very different from the one we just saw.
I see it.
Okay, so would you let
the tail is almost straight down, so it's not tucked, but it's still uncomfortable. And the ears are back, the mouth is closed, the body's in a straight line. Yeah, these are all indicators that this dog does not want to be approached.
Right. So there you go. Maybe roll the next picture so we can... This one is... I hope to goodness that this is super obvious to everybody. It'll show up pretty soon for you, I hope, Julia. This is one that I just got off the internet. And this dog, everything about it, if you were to put your hand anywhere near this dog, you would totally be getting what you deserve. To my mind, it's like, this dog does not want to be petted.
It does seem to be saying stay away.
Yes, I am very, very uncomfortable. Can you see the dog yet? Nope.
I'm sure it'll be.
Okay.
So we've got whale eyes, right? Anytime you can see the whites of the eyes is a bad thing. He's kind of crouching down, which is a fear sign. He's turned his head away from you, so he's saying, please don't bother me. And the ears aren't terrible. I think probably that dog's ears should be perked up a little bit, but they're not straight back, but they're not relaxed, happy ears. The mouth looks a little bit tight too to me. What do you think?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and the furrowed brow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a happy dog.
No, do not pet this dog. Let it have some space.
So, yeah, I would hope that before a bite occurred that there would be a growl, which is normally the in-between step.
Yeah.
But one thing that I was always taught as a kid, that I always heard and that people always did to my family, was if a dog would growl, they would chastise it.
Right.
If
you don't do that.
If you train your dog not to growl, then you get a dog that bites out of the blue because there's no middle ground. Usually it's uncomfortable body language, and that if that gets ignored, it'll escalate to growling or barking. And if that gets ignored, then they have nothing else that they can do but bite.
And
so if you train your dog not to growl and you tell it no every time it growls, then you're taking away one of its language cues, just as if you cut their tail off.
Okay, everybody.
You're
Julia,
taking that away from them.
Repeat that. When you teach your dog to not growl.
When you teach your dog, to not growl, you're taking away that warning.
Yes.
You're taking away part of their language.
And that's one.
And then you get a dog that'll quote, bite out of the blue because you don't get that early warning.
And that's one example of many where humans want their dogs to become more human than they are. That if, we think it would be impolite for a child or an adult to start growling at another person. And we, humans so often want their pets to really become family members in almost the human sense. Like we're all one happy family and we all are polite to each other and no one growls at each other. And so it's like using this top-down approach to try to get dogs to change their natural behaviors because they don't understand how important those behaviors are. When you were mentioning about the dogs that are terrified, and you can see, the tails between their legs and so forth, I think that, and I know I've made this mistake in the past, I'm sure, where we think, well, we want to give the dog a hug to make it feel better because that's what we might do to a human. And when instead you want to do the opposite, which is leave him the frick alone.
Yeah, give him some space.
But that desire to humanize pets, I think, is often so detrimental to them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really kind of like people. Somebody's feeling crummy, and you can read their body language, and it says, the body language says they're feeling crummy. You would ask before you just swoop in for a hug, right?
Right.
And if they say no, that's how they say no. For a dog, you see the dog is feeling kind of crummy, and you maybe move a little more close.
You think you can fix it.
Yeah, they're going to tell you, no, listen to it.
It's also a sign of disrespect because you think that this dog is... You know better than the dog. You own this pet as opposed to
it should just do whatever. Right. So, did we have any more?
That's actually another important thing to mention, and that is, Jen, when you said about the dog not feeling good, maybe they're uncomfortable, but a lot of bites happen with dogs because they're in pain and we don't know it. And so quite often in rescue, and part of the reason I got so interested in body language and understanding how dogs communicate is because I was working in rescue with border collies, and border collies are herding dogs. And herding dogs actually are trained in some instances to bite as part of the herding. They nip, or, it's not a hard bite, but it's a nip. It's part of the deal to get their herd or their flock or whatever it is that they're herding to move. And quite often dogs would come into shelters because they bit somebody. And they would be surrendered by the family because they bit a kid or they bit a neighbor or they bit a jogger or they bit whatever. And then they would be labeled a bite dog at the shelter and they wouldn't be able to be adopted out to the general public. They would be labeled rescue only. And it was my job as the coordinator for North Texas for this rescue to go to the shelter and evaluate the dog and see, well, is this actually an aggressive dog? Is this a reactive dog? Or is this just a dog that was a herding breed who was put in a bad situation and reacted in a normal way?
Yeah.
And it's tough to make that call just on a shelter visit. And, you know, sometimes I would make the decision to pull the dog and I would take him home and I would have him in my house or I'd get him to a foster and, you know, we'd interact with him and the dog would be fine. Mm-hmm. And other times, well, actually this dog does have a reactivity issue or an aggression issue. And then we would have to go see a behavior specialist to work on it and work out a plan.
Right.
But the biting thing, there's all different levels, but unfortunately so many dogs are surrendered to shelters and become homeless every day because their humans let them down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they had no other choice but to bite.
Right.
So being in pain is one of the first things we would always check for. When I would pull a dog, we would take him to the vet immediately and say, this dog was labeled a bite dog. Let's see if there's anything wrong. Mm-hmm. You know, is there arthritis? Is there a hip out of place? Is there a sore paw? A lot of these dogs, you know, out in the country in Texas came in with bullet wounds. They'd been shot and they had shots in their bodies.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fosters that had been shot. And so, you know, is there pain that's causing this? And the dog just didn't have any way to communicate that it was in pain. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot that really goes into it.
Wow. Mandisa, any questions or thoughts?
I am just taking this all in. We have a cat at our house. So basically,
we have three.
And I was just at the home of our Minneapolis organizer and one of the board members for the Minnesota Atheists, and they just had the sweetest little dog. And so, I mean, she was, you know, very jumpy, wanted to, lick all over me. And I mean, she didn't know me, but I mean, it was just a really good experience because I love like affectionate animals and affectionate people too. But yes, these are very, very useful things to know when it comes to, approaching and engaging, especially dogs. Mm-hmm. And because really, I do think that many of us do look at these things from a human perspective of what we want to happen. And I just think that this is something that is totally, and we think of certain animals, like I think back to the, Harambe, the primate at the Cleveland Zoo, who unfortunately was put down because the kid got into the area, and it wasn't that animal's fault,
right?
And unfortunately, we have a tendency to, and when it comes to dogs and other animals, when we get in their habitat and when we invade their space, somehow it's their fault when they attack.
It's like the alligators showing up in people's lawns, where they've just overdeveloped their habitat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, there are some instances where some dogs may, attack unprovoked, but that's that's probably rare.
Yeah.
And no matter how sweet a pet or a dog may be, it's good to know what those warning signs are, and especially with kids.
I've learned a lot from
it's good to learn about and it's good to start teaching them early.
Oh, yes.
Start teaching, really, it's really, really good for them to know these things and how to interact and engage and know what to do and what not to do. Mm-hmm. So all of this is very, very important.
Yep.
There's actually a program in the United Kingdom called the Blue Dog, and they teach kids in schools, young kids, how to interact with dogs. Mm-hmm. And the Blue Dog actually has an app that you can get for your smartphone, which I think is amazing that they're doing that. And then the program in New Zealand, I talked about earlier, the Kids Safe with Dogs program that they're doing is excellent as well. There was a study by the University of Lincoln that found that a better understanding of the way dogs communicate distress is the first step of reducing the risk of dog bites for both kids and adults. Mm-hmm. They investigated how children and parents perceive and interpret dogs' body language and found that both groups significantly underestimate and misinterpret the way that dogs show stress or anxiety.
Right. Yep.
Even stuff like snarling and growling, they don't interpret it correctly.
Good Lord.
I know. Our kids are 13, and I'm their stepmom. I moved in I moved in with my Border Collie and my Husky when they were 5, the poor kids, and they were scared of dogs when I moved in. Boy, they've fostered 100 dogs since now, and they know dog body language better than most people, most adults.
Right on.
And cool. They know beyond any shadow of a doubt that if our dogs ever bit them, it would be their fault. And they joke about it sometimes. You know, Khaleesi, who's my more reactive dog, you know, Khaleesi's going to bite you. And the second I hear anything like that, it's always, what did you do? Why did you do it? Why would anybody say that? And if she does bite you, I promise you, you deserve it.
Yeah. Right. It sounds awful. All you parents out there going, oh, this is supposed to be about the kids, not the dogs. Yeah, we love the kids, believe me. Yeah.
We love the kids. We love the kids. But the thing is, the dogs bite the kids and then the dogs get put down.
Right. Right. It's true.
You don't put down the kids because it gets tormenting the dog.
Right. And if I may interject, how kids and how people learn how to treat other animals is also an indicator of how they will treat other humans. So therefore, it's really, really good for just interaction and development, period.
Yep.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Teaching them how to read dog body language, that does translate to people and to horses and you know, to other living creatures, and it helps you develop empathy.
Right. That's good stuff all the way around. Oh gosh, Julia, this has been so good. We don't have much time left, so and we have a caller, so I'd like to go to this caller. I do not have any indication what this call is about. Perhaps it's about dogs. So, Julia, would you like to stay online in case it is?
I'm happy to, no problem.
All right, hang on just a second. This is Michael from Connecticut, and that's all I know.
Basically talking about.
Hey, Michael?
Yes.
You're on the air with Janet, Mandisa, and Claire, and also, incidentally, Julia, if your question happens to be about dog behavior. So,
if my question happens to be about dog behavior, I thought I was on parenting beyond belief.
This is parenting beyond belief, but our subject today to educate people and parents and children about was how to approach dogs, because for the millionth time, someone permitted their child to run up to my dog, which is really dangerous.
But we're open to any and all questions.
Yes, any and all questions that have to do with parenting, yes, in a secular way. What you got, Michael?
Parenting in a secular way.
Yeah.
So you want to parent in a secular way. Okay, so here's my question. What is the theory, the ethical theory that makes parenting in a secular way ethically justified?
Because everything that it is, if you'll listen, thank you, everything that secular parenting puts forward is actually supported by all of the research. That authoritative parenting, which is what secular parenting is the best way to parent. And authoritarian parenting, which is what religious parenting tends to be, is one of the worst ways to parent.
Right, but what you just did was two logical fallacies packed together in one. One was an argument particio principia, which is sort of circular reasoning. Basically, you appealed against authoritarianism as basically being morally unjustifiable.
No, it's got to do with data.
While at the same time skirting the issue without answering what is the ethical basis? What is the
because we want to raise happy children, and the best way to do that is by doing it the way research shows is the best, and that's authoritative.
Right, research is fundamental, but here's the thing. Research is fundamental. Science is fundamentally a morally non-committed methodology. It's not
which means that you'll get at the answer, and the answer is when you study these things.
Which basically means that you're committing, again, a third logical fallacy, which is the naturalistic fallacy, which means you cannot determine what ought to be done on the basis of a naturalistic fact or in this current state.
That's so not correctly interpreting that fallacy. That means, by your logic, science could never study emotions. And that's not true.
That's a total non sequitur.
No, it's exactly what you just said.
No, because here's the thing. The world of ethics is the world of behavior, not the world of intentions and emotionality.
I want to jump in here just to make sure that we're clear on the point of this show. And there may have been an assumption made about it, and I'll just tell you what I've long believed is the point of the show, which is to offer parenting advice and guidance to secular parents. The point of the show is not to promote secular parenting over other types of parenting. That's been, you know, how I approach questions that we get from people. My role here is not to promote any kind of ideology. It is to assist secular parents who are struggling with any kind of parenting issue they may come upon.
Right, but there's a logical chasm in that. Let me explain the logical chasm in that.
Actually, the only concern I have, I want to jump in, I'm not the main host here, but I do know we are up against the end of our time. And so you are bringing up, I'm sure, a very interesting question, although I'm not quite sure what your question is, because it seems like you're more interested in putting out your beliefs.
Right, no, well, I am interested.
And so forth. But I just don't know if we have time to get into a whole new subject, and maybe it should be for a later show.
Here's what I'm asking.
But I'm not the moderator.
So we can narrow it down. There's a wide variety of ethical theories. There's consequentialism, there's deontology, there's pragmatism, there's utilitarianism, there's moral relativism, there's divine command theory. Obviously, divine command theory is not the ethical basis for which you're pontificating these moral values by which parents ought to be raising their children secularly. So my question is this: in what ethical theory is your advice consistent with? Because if it's consistent with all of them, there would be a number of astonishing contradictions which would be built into that. And number two, if you don't know the ethical theory to which your advice hails from, then you don't know whether or not your advice is even ethical.
What we have addressed in almost every show that I've been on is the what has been proven to be beneficial to children is, as Clare said, I'm going to finish my point. I think if you keep interrupting, we'll have to cut you off.
I just dropped him. I didn't mean to drop him. I meant to put him on hold, but I hit the wrong button, and that truly was an accident. But go on, because your point is...
Yeah, I mean, this just goes back to a topic we've raised so many times, which is that the proven, when I say proven, that is the parenting style that just about every child development expert, child psychologist subscribes to and advocates for is, as you said, authoritative parenting. Does that mean that it's always secular? No. Does that mean it's never religious? No. But that is not only what has been shown to be most beneficial for children, but also happens to be, in my view, the most ethical way to do it. So I feel like I have answered his question, but I have also a sense that he wasn't interested necessarily in learning something.
I would agree with that one. Mandisa, how about you? Let's hear what you have to say.
Well, obviously this guy really wasn't into the point. He totally missed the point of the show. The point, like you said, it isn't to try to promote that we're better parents. It's to provide a resource for parents and also to share our experiences as parents who are atheists, secular, humanists, etc., and what we may do that may be somewhat similar or even different from religious parents. And I think that for our perspectives are very valuable because we don't parent from this, what is it, authoritative? The one that's the least.
The two bad ones are authoritarian and permissive, and in between is authoritative.
Right. So I think that there's an attempt here to, again, because he said he wants to argue. And this is not the show for that. This is not the show where, we're just butting heads and saying that.
I mean, if there was a healthy debate, that would be educational for the audience, of course. But this is
more support. This is more support and advice and information. And I'm sorry, I would have just cut him off even before because
you were very generous with the keeping him on the line.
People don't have the right to call in here and disrupt the show simply because they want to argue.
That's right. I mean,
And yeah,
and that kind of thing is bound to happen every once in a while. Fortunately, it's only happened twice. It was the one flat earther and this guy. And
the
out
flat
of all
earthers.
the callers we've had, those are the only two. And I don't know about your shows, Mandisa, when you and Claire do yours, but so fortunately, we've not had
season recently, and there was one guy, ridiculous. But most of the shows here have been geared towards, the parents have wanted advice, and it's been very productive.
So we are here, parents out there, we're here to support you. We're not here to, be on a soapbox and allow someone's, vanity project to be put out there. So we hope you, we've been serving you in that way. We don't know all the answers for sure, but that is the main purpose of being here, as far as I'm concerned, is, as Mandisa was saying, is to provide guidance and support, and that will be the objective from this point on as well.
And that being said, the advice that I am going to give is going to be based in as much scientific research and the best that we know from counselors and people who work with children and parenting that I can find. So if that's unethical, then I'm unethical.
Which is not the case.
No, it's not. It's clearly not. It's just ridiculous. But anyhow, we are out of time technically, so I'll save my favorite thing for the next time. And Mandisa, can you hang on to yours? So that, or did you do your favorite thing kind of? I can't remember.
I did with the music. When I talked about
you did.
Miles and Earth, Wind, and Fire.
And that was wonderful.
Such a good one. Yep, I now remember. Yep, good stuff. Very good stuff. Julia, I want to thank you for being on today's show. I learned something, even though I know a lot about dogs and dog behavior and all that stuff, and I think everybody else did too. I hope
it was fantastic.
Yeah.
I so appreciate what you've shared today, Julia.
I enjoyed it. I really did.
Great.
It was a very lovely, lovely conversation right up until the last 3 minutes.
That was a little taste of what the Atheist Experience is like if people have not been on. I've been a host on the Atheist Experience, so I'm, I can deal with that stuff. I don't really care to, but parenting, good stuff.
So I have some links.
Oh, goody.
If people wanted to look at them, so where should I share those? Should I put them in the chat on YouTube?
That would be perfect.
Where's the best place for those to go?
Yeah, put them in the chat or in the comments. Those are both great places.
Okay, I will do that. So if people want to look up any of the many apps or websites that are out there relating to dog behavior and how to understand it and get your kids to understand it, there are some really good resources out there.
Right on.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julia. And thank you, Janet, for all that you have done in this show. You were such a help to me today. It was awesome. And Mandisa, as always, wonderful, wonderful to interact with you and learn from you.
Same here.
Thank you. Yes, it was a pleasure to be here.
Right on. And thank you to the Colonel for our lovely graphic that's in the back and makes me happy every time it plays. I just want to sing along with it instead of talk when we come on the screen. Thank you to everybody on the other side of this wall. Mark and Silas are over there making things happen. And I'm sorry, I don't remember who was on our call screener, but good job on the ambush there. It was lots of fun. And we know that parenting is hard, and I hope that in some small way this show has helped you today. And with that final thought, I think it's time for you to go find your kid and give him a big old hug. Bye.